Friday. Glad you could join us. My name is Wavinya Wanyasan. This evening's bulletin, we also expect to have an editorial comment courtesy of Wairimo Mbogwa. But first things first, we take a look at the stories making headlines. Henry Kimtai Tanui. We revisit a heroic effort in the 1982 coup attempt. A woman's world, African women in power. And unhealthy living, just how can we prevent lifestyle diseases? In line with the Mashujaa Day, we highlight and feature Henry Kimtai Tanui, a former Kenya Air Force soldier who worked as an aircraft technician during the 1982 coup attempt. Henry is among the veterans who fought for the country. Wairimo Mbogwa gives us more.
The night of August 1st, 1982, the country woke up to an unexpected attempted coup by rebel Kenya Air Force officers against the government of retired President Daniel Arap Moi. Henry Kimtai Tanui and other former Air Force officers had no idea of what was coming their way when they suddenly heard gunshots.
There was an alarm, and soldiers responded to the alarm. We responded to the alarm. In fact, it was enemy, and most of the soldiers were on drinking spree. We were in town. On entering, there was this alarm, and everybody was directing us to the armory.
The Kenya Army had taken over. They saw their fellow Air Force soldiers being led by the army to the large supply store where they were locked up.
Those who were counter fighting the coup, there were many, and they later on overcame the Kenya Air Force and the other soldiers.
The next morning, the officers were forced to sit on the hot tarmac where they spent their day without food or water, after which they were taken back to the store and food was provided. They spent the next 3 days on the runway as they underwent interrogation. Kimtai and his colleagues were later arrested and jailed for some years. They were taken to Kamiti Maximum Prison and later transferred to Langata Prison.
When we were in prison, we were later told, oh, you have been... No, there was this appeal, and the sentence was reduced to 8 years. And then afterwards, there was again commission review. And then later we were told again, you had to serve for 5 years. But I didn't even finish the 5 years.
After the coup, that was the end of Kimtai's service as an aircraft technician. More than 100 soldiers and 200 civilians died. The Kenya Air Force was later disbanded. The work of Kimtai and his colleagues will always mark Kenya's history in their role to defeat the attempted coup. Reporting for WTV News, I'm Wairimo Mbogwa.
It is based on this story that we'd love to hear your thoughts. Who is your hero and why? Who is your hero and why? To send us your thoughts and comments on 20058, and we'll get to sample some of them at the tail end of our bulletin. Now, concerns are being raised over the Durham cases of deaths that are being experienced in the country, mainly attributed to poor lifestyle choices. And we take a look at the factors contributing to these and just what needs to be done.
Findings by an interagency task force led by the UN indicate young Kenyans are dying of non-communicable diseases. Startling figures have it that 27% of deaths caused by people aged 30 to 70 yearly are caused by various cancers, diabetes, chronic respiratory diseases, and heart ailments.
Basically a carbonated generation. So they become overweight. They're sitting, watching television longer, on PlayStation the whole day, going to movies, watching DVDs. So they're not as active as children, for example, who live in the rural areas, who are constantly running up and down, don't have the kinds of entertainment that our children in the urban areas do. So you find a lot of children are now obese. They're obese, they're diabetic.
This is higher than the World Health Organization's global target of less than 25% of premature mortality. Tobacco use was identified as the main cause of these alarming diseases and eventual deaths, followed by physical inactivity, unhealthy diets, and harmful use of alcohol.
Some do not know. They are only after kujaza tu matumbo zao.
The pockets do not allow. What is the cheapest thing in town today? It's definitely not the good meal that you'd want to have at home.
Food they're eating, they don't know what health quantity the food has.
The healthy foods are very expensive. Lack of understanding what is the balanced diet. We just eat for the sake of eating.
Working hours also matter because maybe I don't want to go and cook.
But thankfully, there is much we can do to reverse the trend. Simple steps that involve eating the right kind of foods and exercising can significantly change and improve one's health. Though not everyone would opt for changes in their lifestyle, for a healthier life, change can begin with you and I and spread through to build a healthier nation.
Now, following the recent scare that the country has had over the Ebola virus, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, the Pharmacists and Dentists Union have now moved to express their concern about the country's level of preparedness in training healthcare workers, as well as equipping hospitals with facilities that are necessary to meet up with the issue should it rise up.
How prepared is the country should the threat of the Ebola virus become a reality? According to the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Board, Kenya is thoroughly ill-prepared and the lives of millions of Kenyans are at risk of the disease.
Anybody who tells any Kenyan that this country, Kenya, today, the health system as it is right now, is capable of handling an Ebola outbreak, either that person does not understand the Kenyan health system or that person is being deliberately dishonest to the Kenyan people, and neither of those is good for us.
The Union Secretary General, Dr. Sultani Matendechero, said that should the current laxity in handling the Ebola issue persist, doctors will not work in hospitals that are under-equipped, thus exposing them to preventable risk.
We are not going to be exposed to preventable risk. There is no way we are going to be exposed to preventable risk. If it can be prevented, let it be prevented. And then we will be exposed to the risk that cannot be prevented.
With the number of actual Ebola cases in West Africa doubling every 20 days, the union says that there is a need for adequate equipping of hospitals with the necessary facilities needed to combat this deadly virus.
Every single hospital that's at risk of at an entry point must have an isolation unit that is proper, a proper isolation unit. Every single facility that deals with healthcare must have running water, must have gloves, must have training for the health workers to screen for Ebola.
A lack of proper isolation unit in the country's hospitals is also a major concern for the union, since the setting aside of one room or ward for isolation puts the whole hospital at risk. In addition, the union says that there is no doctor in the country who can comfortably handle Ebola and that training of healthcare personnel should be coordinated for better results.
There's no healthcare worker in Kenya right now who can honestly stand in front of you and tell you that this is an Ebola patient and I feel ready, safe and prepared to handle this patient. Anybody telling you that is lying.
The union calls on the government to protect healthcare providers from preventable infections by mobilizing resources towards actual preparedness to handle the disease if and when it crosses our borders. For WTV News, I am Irene Galgalo.
And we switch gears to matters church. It is evident that the presence of church and church organizations contributes highly to building a great economy. Now we take a look at the growing phenomenon across the continent of Africa.
Mega churches more often than not attract millions of followers from inside and outside the country. They have spawned almost an entire economy of their own through hotels, universities, publishing firms and merchandising, making hundreds of millions of untaxed dollars.
Total lack of accountability and transparency in the church system. Therefore, one hopes that it's only a question of time before, even for the good of the church, that there should be transparency. If not, what happens is that the people that run the church, if anything happens to them, then there'll be no records.
Many families and individuals consider the presence of local religious organizations when making decisions about moving to communities and purchasing property. The presence of churches aids in families choosing to establish schools and small-scale businesses in local areas.
We use the income of the church to build schools. We use the income of the church to feed, to serve the need of the poor. For instance, in our church, we run what we call membership empowerment scheme. What we do is to give people money, interest-free money, to start small-scale businesses.
Social scientists consider it irrational to participate in moral and volunteer projects because they have such a low personal benefit. However, being a member of a religious community increases one's duty to serve others.
Strike your bed with the mantle. Whatever can survive under the bed of the source of that grace cannot survive under your bed.
Residents say that churches help communities complete vitally important social projects, which government will need to fund if churches did not provide such support. And now, the surging popularity of the mega churches among the Christians, who make up half of a nation's population, has propelled their preachers into the ranks of the richest people in Africa. Reporting for WTV, my name is Agnes Maina.
Well, in line with the Mashujaa Day celebrations coming just a few days, we want to know from you, who is your hero and why? Who is your hero and why? Do send us your comments and thoughts to 20058 and we get to sample them at the tail end of our bulletin. And finally, women across the African continent have been regarded as the weaker sex when it comes to leadership and taking a place in society. But the tide is slowly changing. Citing the likes of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the president of Liberia, Nkosazana Zuma, the head of African Union, and Joyce Banda, former president of Malawi. Indeed, things are changing for the better to secure places of power for women. Radin Biko gives us more on this story.
Africa is the next economic frontier, according to a World Bank report. Among those driving growth in the continent are women. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, president of Liberia; Joyce Banda, former president of Malawi; Fatou Bensouda, chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Court (ICC); Nkosazana Lamini Zuma, head of the African Union Commission; Ngozi Okoji-Iweala, Nigeria's finance minister, who failed in the bid to head World Bank; Leima Gombewe, Nobel Prize winner; Nosiviwe Mapisa Kwakula, South Africa defense minister. A few years ago, Nigeria's oil and gas business barely had any women in leadership position. But that is gradually changing as women entrepreneurs are taking up their place in the boardroom, as Nigeria's oil industry opens up to local players. Amy Jadasimi, managing director of Ladol Company, a petroleum service company, and Catherine Uju Ifejika, chairperson and chief executive officer of Britannia U Companies, and oil and gas companies, are among the few women who occupy top position in Nigeria's multi-billion-dollar oil and gas industry.
People are often surprised when I walk in the room, particularly if they're not expecting to see a woman, and a woman, who looks on the younger side, although I'm not that young anymore. So I think that you have to get people comfortable very quickly. As a male, particularly if you're a white male who's in their 50s, you walk into the room, people will automatically give you a certain level of respect and deference. When you're a woman, you have to earn that.
In April 2010, President Goodluck Jonathan signed into law the Nigerian Content Act, which aimed at increasing the indigenous participation in the oil and gas industry. Not only did this draw an increasing number of Nigerians up the ladder in the oil and gas sector, it has also seen more women take up key positions.
I think in the first 5 or 7 years, I didn't see any women in any senior position in oil and gas in Nigeria, and that was when I was based in Port Harcourt. Maybe that's one area there wouldn't be any women in senior positions. And then when I came to Lagos, I noticed, in 2005, I worked for ADAX, and there were some very senior Nigerian women involved at management level.
Things are beginning to change because men are beginning to find out that women equally have certain potentials. The normal thing, the African man mentality that a woman's place is in the kitchen. Okay, rear children, look after the first baby, which is your husband, look after your children, and then never ask questions. Okay, it's changing now. People are beginning to ask questions.
Even though women are rising up in the leadership position in the society, they are still faced with challenges.
Throughout your career, you will be used to people not necessarily expecting you to be in charge, not necessarily expecting you to know what you're talking about. So as a woman, you have to be over-prepared, and you have to think about every scenario that you could be walking into.
Nigeria is among the world-leading oil-producing country with a production capacity of 2.5 barrels a day, and it's Africa's largest economy. Rading Biko reporting for WTV.
Well, just before we sample some of your thoughts, here is a point where we introduce Wairimu Mbogwa for the editorial comment.
Thank you for joining us for the editorial comment. My name is Wairimu Mbogwa. Now, when a woman died at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport last weekend, fears drove the nation to thinking that it might have been Ebola or the Marburg. Since then, the government has been on check on its preparedness of the deadly virus. The Kenya Medical Practitioners and Pharmacists and Dentists Union, KMPDU, have also been alarmed on how prepared the country is should the virus spread to the country. Fears are that we as a country are not ready, since reportedly there are few health workers that have been trained, and there is not any isolation unit yet. The KMPDU Secretary General, Dr. Sultani Matendechero, Thursday said that lack of knowledge leads to misdiagnosis. The government should therefore work on to educate health workers from both the public and the private sector. The spread of the Ebola virus has killed more than 4,500 people in West Africa since its outbreak. The World Health Organization has said it will ramp up efforts to prevent Ebola spreading beyond the 3 countries most affected. 15 African countries have been prioritized by the World Health Organization. They will receive more help in areas including protection and prevention. We as Kenyans should also work together to ensure we are informed on the disease. The government should also work to ensure that there is proper screening on all entry points of the country. My name is Wairimu Mbogwa, and that was the editorial comment.
Well, thank you, Wairimu Mbogwa, for that informative piece. And this is where we sample some of your thoughts. We had earlier asked, who's your hero and why? Thank you for those SMSs. Sarah Mweru, you say, my hero is Mr. Simon Bevy, a man who stood up for the rights of the boy child and the man. That's awesome. Maureen Wanjiru says her hero is engineer Peter Karigo. He has been in the construction industry for over 40 years, even being part of building the Kenyatta National Hospital. And we have one from George Migwi who says Bob Marley. He advocated for equality across all racial divides. Someone here doesn't leave their name though, but they say that they celebrate a hero called Dedan Kimathi, who fought for freedom and black supremacy, and he's the reason Kenya is a free state. And finally, from Newton, he says his hero is his mother because she took care of him and molded him to be what he is. Well, we do have a lot of shujas to celebrate, and it is on that note that we call it an evening. Thank you so much for having made time to be with us. My name is Wavinya Wanyasa. Do have yourselves a blessed weekend.